Hi you guys. So this video is going to be part one of our Reborning tutorial series using Winsor & Newton's Winton Oil colors. I have Flora here by Priscilla Lopez, and this is the baby that I'll be painting. You can obviously use any kit that you choose. Supply wise, so we're gonna need, you're gonna need normal reborning supplies, your brushes, your sponges, all of that kind of stuff. This set here I got on Amazon, but you can buy these tubes at McPherson's also now. I just got their 20 tube set, and I actually gave my magenta to another student who desperately needed it. So I just bought this other magenta. That's why the tube looks different. So I'm going to be using these. Of course, brushes, sponges. I have my regular thinner, which is Clean Strip Odorless Mineral Spirits. And I also have Xodus thinning oil, which is what is in this bottle. And for the most part, these are the two products that I'm going to be using to thin the paint. One really cool thing to know about Winsor & Newton is it is totally compatible if you want to mix it with Genesis or with Xodus, with, other colors, with mediums. It is completely compatible with other heat set lines. I used to use their oil paint line, their artist oils. I mean, these are oil paints too. That was confusing. They have another line though called Winsor & Newton Artist Oils. They are slightly more pigmented than these ones, but these are still very highly pigmented. As far as kit prep goes, I just washed Flora like I do with all of my kits. I just kind of fill my sink up with hot water. I didn't film that part, but I just put some Dawn dish soap in my hand, kind of scrub them, let them sit in the sink for like 5 or 10 minutes, rinse well, and I just let her dry overnight. So she is completely ready to go. I did look over this kit really well to see if there's any areas that I need to prime first or anything. She does not really have any shiny areas that I think will have trouble taking paint. So I am just going to paint her like normal. I will be using the Xodus thinning oil on like feet and stuff, just in case are any issues like that with this kit. So let's just go ahead and get started. So the very first thing that I'm going to do are blue undertones, and then I'll do creases. So I'm going to use a little bit of the same paint mix here. And actually, hold on one second. All right, sorry. Oil paints are a little bit messy in the tube, and I just wanted to kind of protect my workspace so that I'm not having to change my pad out constantly. So this is a phthalo blue. I'm just going to put a couple drops of thinning oil in my palette there. And I'm just going to kind of barely touch this brush. These are so pigmented that, like, when I say a tiny bit, it literally means a tiny bit. You're not squeezing any out. You're not sticking your whole brush in. You're basically just touching like the very end, and you could see how highly pigmented this is. Normally, I do start with veins. I'm starting with undertones because I'm going to use this blue and put a touch of yellow to get our vein color as well. So I just want to take a quick look. That is still definitely too dark. That looks like it's going to be about right. Just going to get a cosmetic wedge. And I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to start in the inner eye corners and across that lid line. And just blend that a bit. I'm going to go across the bridge of the nose and do the inner corner down a little bit. Same exact thing on that side. Just do a little bit more in the corner there. I'm going to do a layer of this in the philtrum. And just pounce that with the brush and make sure the sides are clean. You only want the shading to be in the center of the philtrum. And I'm going to do this crease around the nose. And you can definitely follow along using another brand of oil paints. All oil paints are going to work exactly the same as this brand. It is really important when you're choosing an oil paint, you want to make sure it's an artist grade oil paint. If you get like a generic, artist choice from Walmart or something like that, they have a lot of fillers and low quality pigments. So if you're just practicing on your own and you're not planning on selling a baby, that's fine, but you will run into issues more than likely with fading and issues from all of the fillers later on if you try to paint to sell or paint to keep. So I'm just doing kind of my little shading down here. I also want to blend that. I don't want a sharp line. I just want a little bit of shading here and under the chin there. I'm going to go ahead and use this blue as well, and we'll do the ear creases. And I'll just talk a little bit while I'm doing these creases about oil paint in general. So technically, oil paint is an air dry product. We bake it to force cure it, just like they do with a lot of canvas work. People bake their canvases or use a heat gun on large art pieces to force cure because it can take several months to fully air cure. By adding the Xodus thinning oil into here, I'm turning it from from an air dry product to a heat set product. And what I mean by that is that with the Xodus thinning oil in there, it will not cure until I bake it. So once I mix the Xodus thinning oil in, I cannot let it air dry if I want to. If I did want to let it air dry, I would want to just use thinner, which will flash off and allow it to air dry on its own eventually. If you are not using thinning oil and you're just using thinner, you do want to make sure that you clean your brushes when you're done and that you clean your palette out because eventually it will dry up in your palette. You want to use a ceramic palette, not a plastic palette. And I'm hoping that you guys can see these literally work exactly like Genesis. The blendability is the same. The, pigment load is pretty much the same. The way that I'm using it, the amounts, all of that kind of stuff is going to be exactly the same. So you're not going to see a huge difference using these than you would be with using Genesis. As far as like the way that I mix them, techniques, all of that kind of stuff is really going to be the same. And I don't want to do these creases too heavy. She has this like super quadruple ring going on kind of here. So I don't want to emphasize all of those rings. And I just want to take a little look. I might do a little bit of shading up here, which I don't always do. But I think her sculpt could benefit from that. And I just want to blend that in, and I'm doing that right above this is the brow line here. I'm doing it right above the brow line. And she has some really great, like you could, if you look, I can almost even feel like little vein lines and tendon lines. So she is going to be really amazing to vein. And that is it for blue shading on the face. I'm going to go ahead, we're going to shade the center of her hand, just where the skin would be a little bit thinner and a little bit here. And I'm also going to just use this for a first crease layer between the fingers. And do a little bit of shading between the fingers here where there would be some veining and thinner skin. Baking is going to be exactly the same as Genesis. It's going to be 265 for about 9 minutes. That may vary a little bit based on your oven, but it's going to be anywhere between 7 and 11 minutes. I actually really love her vinyl color. Most of the kits I've been getting lately have been super bright orange. Her kit is definitely a warm tone, but it is not like a crazy orange, even though I just looked at my screen. It looks kind of crazy orange on my screen. In person, though, it does not. And I just want to blend out a little bit better at the end so there's not like a sharp line for the crease as far as color and shading goes. She is, I love this sculpt. I've wanted to paint this sculpt for a long time. Like I saw some prototype versions that just really sold me on this sculpt. I have no idea yet, like exactly what style. If you guys have been watching me for a while, you know, a lot of times I will show a photo of what look I'm going for, like before I start. This one, I'm not doing that. This baby, I'm free to paint however I want. So I'm going to take full advantage of that and just kind of see how she develops. Just gonna get that excess color out of her, off of her fingers. And I'm going to be slowly building creases up like usual, just so they look the most natural. And we'll do a little shading between the fingers, but this hand is closed, so I don't want an excess. I just kind of want to look where the actual shadow would be. And again, on this, I'm stopping before the actual crease so that I can just blend it out naturally. It doesn't really matter so much on this first layer, but as they start building together, that'll be important later on. And do just a little bit on the bottom of the toes, just like with the fingers, just where there would be a little bit of thinner skin there. I really like oil paints a lot. I know that I already said that I used to use them, like when I first started. I did have some Genesis, but I would just use them like interchangeably. I would mix them a lot, and I mean, they are obviously a lot more affordable in general than like Reborn specific heat set brands. They are very long-term tested. They've been used for reborning for well over 20 years. People kind of forgot a little bit about them when Genesis came out. Genesis pretty much became the new normal. And then now, of course, that Genesis is gone, people have gone back. Jessica Collier Lewis is one of the artists who has really brought these back into the forefront. She started using them a few years ago. She teaches a class at Dolls of the World Expo, and hopefully she'll be doing more of that in the future. She did come up with a base that you can use with these. It's and some pre-mixed colors with that base in it. They're called Call Oils. I had kind of debated using some of those in this class, in this series, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep it purely the oil paints for those that are just have the oil paint and just want to learn how to paint just using those. And then eventually I will do a series with the Call Oils on their own. So on the foot, I'm pretty much just doing shading on the inside of the foot here. I want to do some shading below the ankle and on the outside of the ankle. Again, pretty much just where there would be some thin skin. And we will do the same exact thing on the other foot here. Oh, I love this foot. It has really nice little open toes. I'm like a sucker for open toes. I think they are so cute. I really wish that more sculptors would do open toes on Reborns. Like they look so much more realistic in photos. Like you can just get the best pictures with the little open toes. Like hyperrealism is definitely a lot more challenging when you have like fused fingers and fused toes. I'm just gonna do really light on those creases. Do a shading there on the inside of the foot again. All right, so now let's turn this into a vein color. I'm going to have to be super, super careful with this yellow. I might actually just touch it to the lid, not even to this part. And there's not quite enough color on the lid. Hopefully my mixing will be a lot faster as we go on. I haven't used these regularly in a long time. I used to be like really quick at them. I could tell, you know, exactly how much on my brush I needed. And now I've been just using Genesis for so long that that has gone away a little bit. But definitely go slow. It's always better to get too little than too much. All right, I think we'll do one touch more and then I think that will be good. All right, there we go. So you'll want a color similar to that, basically just kind of like a teal color, and I basically just tried to do like the same as my premix. I know it's probably hard to see right here, but it looks very blue on my screen. It's definitely more of a blue green. And sorry, I am looking for, hold on, I'm gonna pause you guys. I guess I will use this brush. I can't find my other brush. Basically for veins, you're going to want something small. I will probably use this very small one on for the veins here on the inside of the hand. Be on the foot. I'm going to use this one. This one is a zero liner, but I've hand trimmed it just so that it gives me a better line. This one is really great for like regular size veins on the forehead and arms, things like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna do a center forehead one. I just want to pounce that. I want to blend it out. You don't want to be able to see where it starts or stops, and you also want to blend a little bit in the middle. If you look at your own veins, usually you can see bits peeking out here and there. You're usually not going to see something that is just like this. So you really just want to blend them out really well and make them look natural. And you know what? I was not expecting this, but my paint mix is a little bit too light. So we're going to add some more blue in here. And I just want to take a quick look, not at the color, but at the darkness level on this. Okay, that is much better. And I'm going to add some more yellow. You want to be really careful. These tubes are pretty messy. You can use little pet jars. If you mix them with Xodus thinning oil, you can put them in jars instead and they won't dry out, but you have to mix them with either Xodus thinning oil, or you can also use from Call Oil. She has a base that you can mix it with that will also prevent it from drying out, and that will be like a thicker mix. All right, so I'm just going to redo this one here. And I really want to follow some of these like natural lines that were sculpted in so beautifully. A really good rule of thumb, this is probably the #1 thing that I get asked or that people have issues with, are veins being too dark or too light, and how do they know? So I'm going to give you a little trick that is a rule of thumb that has never failed me before. If you can see your vein fine in real life, but you take a photo and you cannot see it in the photo, your vein is the perfect amount of darkness level. If you can clearly see your vein in a photo, it is way too dark. And there are some areas that I do darker veining, and I might actually do it on this baby because why not? Areas like here that would show through the hair. So on these ones, I'm pretty much just blending the outside, and I'll just kind of pounce it a little bit. Because hair will be rooted there, I won't be able to see it, but if they look through the thinner hair, they will be able to see some little realistic looking veins there. And if you, I'm just I kind of just randomly do veins where I think they will look good. If you go into my Facebook group, I do have reference photos there, and I do have little charts that I made that show like exactly where on each baby part to put veining. If you're not comfortable just winging it. Just want to do these small veins that go up from your eyes and meet on the forehead here. And we'll just do some darker ones on the head. You want to make sure that you are not doing them like a straight line, that they have some movement. I guess that'll be the start of one there. On the head, I obviously don't worry about them as much because they will be covered with hair, but it's just kind of one of those like extra realism things, you know, if your customer looks at it really closely and it's like, oh wow, there's even realistic veining on the head. Like if you are selling in a higher price bracket, it's one of those things that are definitely expected. And I'm just gonna do one here. There's like a sculpted line that I can see that will accentuate that. Perfect. So I'm gonna do these here. These come up onto the hand by the thumb. I'm gonna use my smaller brush for this. And I just want to do really tiny, realistic looking veins. And these ones, I'm basically just pouncing super gentle. I don't want to blend them in. I want them to be visible like they are on your regular hands. Okay, that looks great right there. Other finger veins I'm going to do are here on the thumb. I'm just going to do a small one there. On the side of the finger here. And on the outside of that pinky finger. All right, now we'll go back to the regular brush for hand veins. Hand veins go up into all of the fingers. I don't know how well you guys can actually see those on camera. And just a little more shading at the base here. And we'll do one here up the arm. This is a great spot for veining, and you don't have to do all of these veins, but I would want to try to do some. You can shade a little bit in this area too and just blend it in. There's multiple veins right there. And this would be the brachial artery. That was really thick, so I can just go in with my sponge and clean it up and then go ahead and pounce it. All right, I'm happy with those. So I'm just going to start with my small ones on here. There's a lot of creases on the hand here, so I don't want to do, you know, if the skin is bent like this, you're not going to see it in a crease. So I just want to be a little bit more careful about where I'm placing them so that they actually look realistic still. And we'll just do a little shading there where they would kind of meet and go into the hand. And on the arm. And just a little kind of mimic right there. And I'm going to just darken this one a little. It's a good idea to have kind of different ones that will show a little bit more, ones that just kind of barely show. These ones are my personal favorite to do. And that is these really small ones on the inside of your foot. They are pretty much like like the veins here. And up the side of the toe and then on the baby toe as well. And just like on the fingers, they go between the toes there. And we'll use this darker brush for one on the outside of the foot. And then, of course, on the actual foot itself. And just a little shading here where they would meet with larger leg veins. And we'll do one darker one, just a little touch in the middle there. And we can do the one that goes up over the ankle bone because there's no crease on that one. And inside the leg, I would love to do this one, but it has this fat crease there, so you would not naturally see one. We'll do some shading behind and then just a touch coming up where there are a lot of veins there that meet that are large veins. And then, of course, the large one on the inside of your thigh. And this one, there's one on both sides of your knee, actually. That one there was like sculpted in really nicely. And I'm just going to accentuate this one a tiny bit more. And we'll again do these small ones on the inside of the foot that go actually into the foot. And just kind of barely pounce those, but do blend the edges so they don't look like you just drew some lines and stopped at a weird spot. Can do a really nice one on that ankle, not on this one again. I do know some artists who don't do actual veins on the foot. They just pretty much shade on the inside. you are definitely, you can do that. I really enjoy doing the veins. I like the way that they look when they're finished. Like, I think they just add a really great level of realism, but it's entirely up to you. You don't have to do them. And again, some shading here where all those veins would meet with the larger ones in the legs. And what is this? I have a little spot here. Do the ones on the inside of the leg. And knees. This one has a really great little sculpted line. We'll do an outside thigh one. I don't always do those, but if they do have a good, where it's kind of been sculpted in, I will 100% accentuate that one. And again, we'll do some shading here first. And then coming up from the back of the thigh. Do this one just a little bit darker right there. All right, that is it for veining and first shading and first creasing. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to bake this. This is going to be part 1, and then we'll pick right up with part 2. If you are done for the day, do make sure that you cover your palette. I get these stretchy covers off of Amazon. I'll put the link in the description, or you can, of course, just use saran wrap. All right, you guys, I'll see you in the next one.